Is it going? Yeah. All right. Sound good? You good?
Mhm.
Common small engine carburetor. You might have American ones or Walbro or Zama. This is a Chinese one. Um, but just going to show they're basically all the same. There's a few mistakes you can make, but it's not much. If you want to repair it yourself instead of having somebody do it, you could obviously, this is removed. These holes, it'll slide onto it. This side right here is the intake gasket. So this seals it out. Your air box would be on this side. This would mount to your intake manifold plastic. So the bolts would come through here. Um, that's important. Some have it, some don't. This is a pulse hole, uses the up and down of the piston crankcase pressure to pump the pump inside here. So there's two sides to this. People sometimes get it wrong, but I already went ahead and started taking it apart. So these screws are off this side. No, I'm just going to show real quick so I can finish taking them apart. You would remove these screws and try to keep, of course, everything together. Just start this side from now. If they stick, whack it with plastic. Now, this, I have never taken this apart. This is what it would look like. This is all old fuel, and you'd never get it to run without it, with this in it. So, this diaphragm here, you would have to take it off. And this one's Mylar, and you have your pump diaphragm. The mistake that is made when you have this side, you take off. If you have a primer bulb on top like this one does, on this side of the carburetor, this goes down first. And when you're going to replace it, if this was a new one from a carb kit, this would have to go down first, then your gasket on top of here. It's the opposite on the other side. That creates the bowl. So you have your diaphragm here. I'll put it over here. And here's your, they call it a primer bulb, but it's not. It's a purge bulb. What this does when you pump it is it exchanges good fuel in the tank for old fuel that's in the carburetor. So you can pump it as much as you want, and it's not putting it into the engine. It's not priming it, it's purging it. So people get that wrong. It's a purge bulb. They're maybe $3, probably good to replace that. They get cracked. A lot of times you check this. If your unit is running wild up and down, you might have a crack in this or a little split, and it might be, this one seems to be good. Now the other side, just to get on with this quickly, here's your check valve right here. This has a little what they call a duckbill flapper, and this hole on the other side of that is the rubber comes to what would look like a duckbill, and it's a one-way valve. You can push in on it, and then it won't reverse. So if you took carb cleaner and you spray in there, you'll see that it's going to come out. Anytime you spray into a hole on a carburetor, it should be coming out somewhere else. Okay, I would do is, it's not necessary always to even replace this gasket. When you put it back together, tighten it up a little bit more than what you took it apart to give it that little extra, and it'll probably stay good. But you are wanting to spray with carb spray in every hole you see. Don't start sticking anything in there. That's a mistake too. You're not cleaning a jet out like you would on a lawnmower. So that it's not advisable to stick any pins or anything in these things. Little check valves, you can ruin them. That's another mistake. So little hit gets you. Now here's your metering diaphragm, and this is common too. This thing's hard as a rock. So this should be soft, and it's not. So what I'm going to do is show you the other side of this, which is kind of important. There's another trick too that some people don't know, or if you want to know this, even if this was brand new, all right, this one is hard and it won't function. It should be soft. And again, I'll have to say it again. Now, in this case, the gasket is on the bottom. This touches the carb of the gasket first, then the diaphragm. Just the opposite on this side. That's what you need to know. Now, also, you get a new one. You want to grab this and see if you can spin it. I can spin that one, but it's shot already. But if you have a new one and it spins like this, don't force it. But if it spins at all, like this one is really easy, it's going to leak around here. You don't have to throw it away. All right. So if you took this and you laid this down on something like a vise or something flat metal, you can take a small ball peen hammer. Got one around here. Anyway, you just lightly tap on this. This is aluminum, and it'll tighten up, so you don't have to throw them away. Now, what you have here is you have your needle and seat assembly. And this is a check valve. That looks like a jet, and people will stick a pin or something in there thinking they're cleaning it out, and they're going to ruin it. There, inside that is simply a small little disc of rubber, and there's a hole on the other side, and that's what's pumping, okay? That's going to have a passageway from that hole to there, and it's going to allow it to pump up and down. So if you poke through that little rubber, you just ruined it. So that's not what you want to do. You're at this point, you would want to do is go ahead and take this out. Once you get it loose, hold it with your thumb. There's a spring involved. Take that screw out and dump it out in your hand. You might have to pull it out. This is how it came the way it is now. So let me show you. Here's your needle. This is what's going to stop the fuel or allow it to go in. This is where the fuel comes in through here. On this one, I could see there's a little black ring around it. You might not be able to see it, but what you're looking for is marks are okay, but not a ridge. If you have a ridge on it, it's worn out. Replace it. So inspect it. If it's good, it's good. If it's got a step to it, you don't want it. And that would be called a needle. Here's your seat down in there. You're going to want to look down in there. Sometimes when you take an old one apart, the rubber will stay stuck to that and rip out, and it'll always leak. So you're going to do work for nothing. You're going to put it back together, and it won't work. Well, a reason why is that could be have something down in there. You definitely want to clean that out and make sure that that is nice and clean. So again, you're going to be spraying in one hole and out the other. That hole, every hole, you're going to want to spray carb spray through and let it soak for maybe 5 minutes before you start blowing it out. And the reverse is going to be the reverse order that you're going to put it back together. Here's your mixture screws. This is a dirty carburetor, but that has an H right there. That means that this one lined up is your high-speed mixture jet. So I just want to tell people the best way to go about this. This is what everybody messes with. These are tamper-proof ones, but the dealers will have tools that will allow them to adjust it and not you. But if you don't, want, and if it's beyond warranty and you want it to run right, you can take a hacksaw or a Dremel and just cut a line. Cut straight through there till you go into these two, maybe 1/8 of an inch. And just don't worry about it. You're not going to damage this body. It means nothing. Cut right through there, and then you can use a regular flathead screwdriver once you make your groove to turn these. So your initial turns on 90% of these is going to be bottom it out and go 1.5 turns out to start your unit. Okay. Let's say it's rebuilt at this point. A good idea, I think, is to go from the start and count your turns as you go down, because some of them have fine threads and they're 3 turns out. So as it sits, when you get it, turn it in, count the turns, each one, and then remove them completely and just write down or remember what these turns are for each one. This is your high-speed jet. This is your low-speed jet needle. And what you can do is put them back to that. If you're unsure, you go at 1.5. When you're going to do is when you put this back together, you're going to have to adjust these. It's part of the deal. So your best thing to do is to start it normally with choke, half choke, and off choke. When you're revving that, if it wants to stall, turn your high out a quarter turn and turn your low out a quarter turn if it wants to stall immediately. If it's slowly wanting to stall, it takes time for it to stall, then it's too rich, but it'll try to throttle up. If it doesn't want to throttle up, you're too lean. You have to come out. It goes whoop, whoop. That happens a lot. So doesn't want to throttle up, you're too lean. These have to be turned out. If it runs itself down and there's smoke coming out, these are too far out. It's too rich. So you would go in and you just do it till you can get it so that it will throttle up and run. Don't worry about the idle at this point. Get it till it warms up a little bit. Now, as it runs, you're going to concern yourself with the high speed first. As it's running, let it run wide open. Hopefully you have string on it or a chain on the chainsaw, whatever it happens to be. Run it wide open, and you're going to turn this kind of coarsely so you'll hear the engine increase or decrease in RPM. If you turn it out and it's increasing, keep going. You're doing the right thing. Then it'll start to bog or it'll start sounding like it's loading up. Slowly turn that in and it'll start screaming out. It'll start what they call two cycling. It'll sound really, really nice hum. That at that point, stop there. You're going to let it go. We let your throttle go. Once you do let the trigger go, if it stays idling, fine, you're close. If it wants to stall immediately, again, this has to be turned out slightly. This one is always going to be fine adjustments because it's a very, very small hole. There's a balance. The reason you have a high and a low only is because the carburetor itself meters it. You're the middle mixture. You have idle, mid-range, and full wide open. This is full wide open. That's idle mixture. It balances in between each other. The balance between these two screws is what gives you your mid-range ability. So you want to do is if again it wants to stall instantly, this is turned counterclockwise, about a half turn, quarter turn to a half turn. Try it again, even if you have to restart it. Then if it's wanting to die slowly, it's too rich, you would turn this in. You get to the point where your unit is idling and it will throttle up. If it wants to bog and it'll give you what sounds like a whoop, whoop, die, you have to turn this out a little bit, but not a lot. This guy can be turned back out and it will come onto power. It'll allow you to throttle up. You have to get it that way. What you're going to have in this case is this. On this is your main overall idle adjustment. Don't use this for a mixture adjustment. Don't just use this to keep it up because you may have a clutch and you may be burning it out. Once you've got it so it's purring on idle and revving fully wide open, this will give you your adjustment at the end. This is the last thing you're going to adjust for your idle. Okay, so if I can show you another trick, do this real quick, and I'm going to end this, is you need to put this back together. Well, that can be a problem. The best way to go about that is you take your spring, and you set your spring in this hole right here. It's just notched out for it. Now, my spring is there. Gotta be real careful. And you're also going to drop this in here. There's, other people do it different ways, but I've done tens of thousands, and I found this to be the best way for me. So this is where your patience comes in. Leave that peg in there. That's been a long time since all right. So I'm going to set that there. Get yourself ready. Now this is offset. What you have here is the peg is not going to be perfectly centered. It's going to be slightly offset like I have here. Okay. So get yourself set. Now it's ready to go. Pinch it right here so your fingernails are holding that so it doesn't move. Be careful. And you got to try to do this all in one fell swoop. Now, this spring is not cooperating at all. Boy, oh boy. Push down on the spring in the center and then hook it in the bottom here and push down with your thumb. So even if you have to adjust this a little bit. Let's see here. So it looks like to me that I may have it. Now you have to take your screw and put it in there, really not knowing if you got it yet. So what I would do is I would try that. And lo and behold, I got it. So if you need to back the video up, I'm not going to do it again, and see, that's the trick to getting that. So you don't, get so frustrated you don't want to deal with it. Now you tighten this up, and it's part of being rebuilt now. You're going to want to check this up and down. So this diaphragm pumps that right here. Okay. And 9 out of 10 of them, you got to look down and look at this level as flat as you can get it and see if this sticks up high, which is proud or high, that's no good, or too low. I'm looking at this and it is slightly too low. These they're made by the thousands at one time, so I adjust them. And now I'm going to look down again, and as I turn down like this, I see that this is level with these two, the outside of the carburetor, outside edge. Now it's set. That's your metering height. They have tools to do it and stuff, but you don't need it. 9 out of 10 of them are like this. You'll know if it's not when you take it apart. It'll be a deep bowl. Those are for larger CC engines, but 9 out of 10 are like this. Now this thing's getting ready to go back together. So in this case, there is no hole. Some of these will have the weep hole or the pulsar hole going through there. This doesn't. So again, what I'm going to do is I'll put this like this, and some have a notch to go in that hole. This probably, the body was for different applications. So now I knew that I put the gasket down first on this side, like I had mentioned. Okay, and I'm going to stop there. You have to put them all in. And in this case, you got to know now that you're going to have, this is a very common one. You're going to see these two flappers right here. Okay, that's your pump, called the pump diaphragm. Now, you have a hole here. When you put this down, you should see that your screw holes line up. And at one of these, it's always going to have your screen. That's your little screen that's going to stop sediment getting into your carburetor. Okay, and one thing I want to tell you about the screen is there's recalls starting like 20 years ago where this screen right here was too fine, and no matter what you did, it wouldn't allow the carburetors to run right. If it's too lean and you did everything right, that's fine. So I pop these screens out all the time, every single time, bar none. And once I've got it in my hand, okay, I feel it to see if it's soft. They call them hard and soft screens in the biz, and this one is soft. So I know, and you should be able to see through it, okay? If it was hard and it wanted to keep its shape, then that would mean it's a hard spring, get rid of it. It's better to have nothing in your carburetor than a hard screen. This one's soft, I put it back in. And it's just an old carb, it was replaced, I'm never gonna use it, so just to show. And again, diaphragm first, and you would line that hole up like that. Now, another trick is open this up, your butterfly on the other side, and hold it so it gives you room to put this down. Otherwise, you're going to fight and this will shift. You don't want that to happen. Now, I felt the two little notches drop in, so I can hold it like this. I'm going to put primer bulb on if I wanted a new one or not. And you're going to find that these holes will line up. Put it back together. Okay. And if you've cleaned all the hole, you take your time to use spray. You clean them all, spray in every hole you can find, let it sit for a while, and you do what I said in the adjustments. Here's your choke. You'll have rebuilt your carburetor.